Well, hello, and here we are with our last session of this series, Business of Self. Possibly it's going to be continued with Business of Self. We actually will have community calls where you can come in and join us on Mondays and on Fridays to get into this nitty-gritty that we're discussing. And today I have the pleasure of having Maria Tabone with me today from the Holistic Root, and we're gonna explore how and why. And I titled this, let me just get her in. Let's see. Hello.
Good morning. Good Friday morning.
That's right. If you are on the East Coast or in the States for that matter, if you are somewhere else on this planet, you might have already afternoon at this point. So welcome everyone. So excited to have you here, Maria, and everyone else who's watching. I just wanted to introduce our topic today, which is connecting the dots. And this is really because Maria is here for our last day. And the funny thing is, I was starting these conversations, and she was the first one I was really in conversation with in regards to this series. And what's really interesting to me in connection to everyone here is just that we cannot make up how these dots are being connected. How these dots are being connected is because we're being just present and aware in what's going on. And that's actually the theme of today and any day. Because yesterday I was watching something where in relationship to what's going on in the world, and it was referenced in connection to history, and that there are somehow these links that get us to a certain place. But each link, and in our conversation, each dot has its own roots. It has its own way of coming about. And then in some way, shape, or form, these things are being connected again. So just like us as humans, right? We five have been connected with each other in this community call, and what we each have our own roots. And, you know, having Maria here with her organization name of Holistic Root, or at least the Instagram handle, makes so much more sense too, right? And so this is what we want to acknowledge, is that we all have our own roots, our individual roots, where we were born from the day we were on this planet, plus the roots from our parents, their grandparents, etc., etc. And it just goes so far into the past. And having here Maria that talks about Ayurveda, and we had Swati who also has some background in Ayurveda, I've learned that it's thousands of years. So just this one particular tree, let's say, we have so many aspects in our lives that go back in time, and we only see this glimpse of moment right here. So we can all we can do is connecting the dots. So welcome, Maria. Enough of my talking. Welcome. Introduce yourself and let me know what comes up for you as you introduce our topic today.
All right, Dithya, it's so nice to be here with you this morning. Thank you so much. I am, as you know, Maria Tabone. My company is called the Holistic Root, and I am a Ayurveda practitioner. I also am a functional nutrition coach. I do clinical aromatherapy. I'm an herbalist, teach yoga and meditation. So, and, you know, it was just interesting hearing you talk about, you know, the roots of our lives, right? That, you know, that was just coming up for me. Like, yeah, it's getting to the root of things, right? Even when we talk about health, when we talk about psychological issues, whatever it is, you know, you want to dig deeper. And in Ayurveda, that's what we do. When, you know, when someone comes to me, it's all about, okay, well, it's not, if you have something going on in your life, there's something that's causing that, right? Even if it's conflict in your life, what's the root cause of that conflict? You know, we can be angry and upset about things in the moment, but it's taking a step back and being mindful to look at things, I think, in a different way is really helpful.
Oh, it's great. I had a meditation session last night, and I had the same theme, connecting the dots. And what's really interesting that we explored is that when you are in the midst of things, right? And even in this conversation I was listening yesterday about what we just talked about, like what's happening in the world, is like when time is passing, like they were bringing up examples of Ireland, they were bringing up examples of Germany and the Jews, right? Like today, decades later, it is possible for people to come together and be in the same space.
Yeah.
And so what's really interesting is that when you're in the midst of something, it's really hard to understand what got you here and see the positive of something or see the purpose of why we're ending up here in the first place. And that's what you exactly pointed at. It's like, yeah, we're looking at it on the surface, right now. But what if we go a little deeper? What if we go a little deeper and then we take care of that and something else comes from it? All of a sudden, we get out of that suffering, that pain, or whatever initially brought us to you, for example. But at some point when that dissipates, we can look back and we have a much better perspective of what actually happened. Meaning now is not the time to figure out the solution necessarily, but really to just, okay, let's get to the core first and then find the right solutions that really help us. How does that show up in your practice?
Oh, absolutely. I think, with health, it, we say that this didn't happen overnight, right? So if you develop some health condition, like for example, with me, I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune thyroid condition. So I've had it for like 12 or 13 years, but over time with my practice and just diving deeper, I realized, yeah, these things don't pop up overnight. It accumulated over time. And so, but it's not always easy to look at why, to kind of, break down things and dig a little deeper, and that's why we, I think just as humans, we push that aside, especially when it comes to our health. And then all of a sudden, boom, something hits you and you're like, and you're looking at it on the surface and you're taking care of it. But you have to really peel the layers of that onion. Not always easy to do, but really very necessary. To truly, I think to truly heal anything, I think it's really necessary to take a look at that. I mean, whether it's health, whether it's, relationships, whatever it is, your psychological health, all of that.
And I think also what you're pointing at is really like this discomfort, not only the initial discomfort again, like on the surface, but what will come up later on as we are exploring that, what is the root, right? And then being okay by embracing that piece. So I wonder, how do you meet people when they get closer to that discomfort and try to avoid it or try to get away from it because it's more painful to really get to that core issue? Like how is like something that you would get us or help us with familiarizing ourselves?
I think that, when you said about discomfort, I think in my experience, sometimes you have to just go right into that discomfort. If you keep pushing it aside, that may be what got you here in the first place. It's instead of pushing it aside, like many years ago, which started me on a path to, I wrote a book about managing anxiety holistically, but because I had it, and I think, the best advice was to kind of, even with meditation, go into it, feel it. And that's the only way to discover it and move through it. Because if you just keep, like at the beginning, what I did was like, oh, this is uncomfortable. I hate this feeling. I want it to just go away. But that was the worst thing I could do, because it just made it worse instead of sitting with it. And again, that can be painful too, but it's what you get on the other side of that. Because just sitting with it, I think, as you talked about meditation, I think meditation is such a powerful thing to do. I just meditated for a half an hour this morning, like I do every day. And it really, I say to people, it's life changing. And I've had some comments that say, really? Like, that's life-changing? I'm like, no, it is life-changing, because you really getting into those moments and you're feeling those moments. And I think in this culture especially, we don't have time to feel moments. We don't take time to just be. Everything is doing. I think it's, John Kabat-Zinn, um, who created MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, talks about how we are human doings when we should be human beings. And I think that is an amazing statement. It stuck with me ever since I first heard it years ago. And it's really now more than ever prevalent. We are so distracted. And of course, we're on social media. We're using it for a good thing. But again, it's a double-edged sword like anything else, right? So too much of it day and night will just keep you distracted from your life. So I think, I think that it's a great thing to start with. Take a couple of minutes every day. I tell my clients, give me 2 minutes. You don't have to sit on a mat for 45 minutes. Give me 2 minutes, a couple of times throughout the day, especially if you're feeling stressed. If it's at work, especially, many people feel stressed at work. And I've said to clients, go in the restroom. I don't care where you go to get your 2 minutes of mindfulness. Just get away from everybody. Just to reset. And I think as you keep doing that, like anything that becomes a habit, over time, you really start to feel the benefits of that. And mindfulness really made me think differently over the years, just work through things. And it really is amazing. I think it's a very, well, I won't say simple, because I hear many people say, I can't meditate. But I say everyone can meditate. It's a practice. There's no wrong, there's no failure with it. Just try it. Just one day, just sit and do it for a few minutes. And over time, you're going to see the benefits of it.
I think everything you have now mentioned, from the distraction, we started with discomfort, the distraction, yep, and now like the ability to meditate, right? I feel like all the aspects that make it so challenging is expectation. Because there is a certain expectation, like I should not have discomfort. I should always do something. Like I cannot just be. I think it's not that we can't be, like just be. I think it's just this expectation is like, oh, that means I'm not doing anything and I'm not being productive. I'm not doing this, right? So there's a certain expectation with that. And then additional, when we mentioned the last piece of like this, what was it? I just lost, what was the last thing that you mentioned? Oh, meditation. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. Like we have a certain expectation of what meditation should be like. And the other day I was meeting someone who was asking me a question around the meditation that he started doing, and he was just curious, like, what do you think about this meditation? And I wasn't so keen on that particular meditation. It can work for many, and I'm not gonna bring it up what that exactly was, but what I'm saying is really that when we talk about meditation, it could be anything that you just attend to yourself in a quiet space at your own time without a distraction. It could even be with music, it could even be with art, it could be an activity that we do. I mean, Tai Chi, I believe, is considered meditation, mm-hmm, right? So, and yoga can be a part of a meditation, right? And so it just depends on how are we expressing these experiences. How do we move through these moments? Like, am I rushing to it to get somewhere? That is not meditation, right? Meditation, to me at least, is being present in what I'm doing without the distraction, noticing what's happening when I'm present. And that's how I can see it with more ease when I'm talking to an everyday person that might think of meditation to be a certain way. What do you say about that?
Oh, 100%. I've taught classes on mindful eating. Even if you're washing the dishes or washing your hands or in the shower, just be in that place, right? I think gardening is very meditative. To your point, music. It's whatever resonates with you, where you can be in that moment and be when you're doing something and you're like, oh my gosh, 2 hours has passed, right? That's because you're so immersed in something, if it's an art project, whatever it is, that's meditation, because you are in that moment. So, right, what I try to do it when I'm, walking in New York City, to try to be do walking meditation, mindful of my steps, just mindful of what I'm doing. But you're absolutely right. I think, and it's hard because culturally, that's not the kind of culture, society that we live in. It's everything, like you said, the expectations. Everything is very fast moving, and we've gotten used to that. But I just can't see how our brains can handle all this information and all this distraction. Well, we're seeing research on it that it's not really handling it. I mean, it's had adverse effects on people, and we have a mental health crisis. So, there's so many reasons to just take a moment. For example, a client said to me, it's when she eats, I don't even know what I'm eating. I just wolf it down. And when I'm done, I don't even remember like what I ate and I thought it just made me sad. Mm-hmm. It's almost like, okay, eat, get through it, and move on to the next thing. So we can find those moments just in anything to slow down. And again, it is amazing if you do that with whatever it is in your daily life. I used to read 3 books at one time, and I'm still getting better at that. I still have 3 books around but I'm like, you know what? Who reads 3 books at one time? I have to focus on one thing at a time. So it's a work in progress for all of us.
That's right. And it's funny because I could never read more than 1 book. And last month in September, so I always do these accomplishments for every month, because that was something I was introducing to my meditation group to do, is like to have big goals. For example, like I want to feel more at ease at the end of the year, for example, right? Like I have to track that what I'm doing to be at ease, because I can't expect to be at ease at the end of the year if I don't do anything to be at ease, for example, right? So I have to see like, oh, I'm taking walks every day or whatever it is, like once a week. So that was like one part. But what's really interesting is like, yes, I was trying to read these 2 books and I was so frustrated because I couldn't get anywhere. I was like, I am not getting anywhere because I'm reading a page here, I'm reading a page here. Yep. I lose track. And then I was like, what is going on here? Like I need to finish one thing. And it was one of the things I told myself, like, you finish 1 book and then you attend to the other book. And it was just like real remembering. And that's what really came up for me when you were talking before about, our everyday, when you were describing how you move through the city, how you go about your day and such, right? And also acknowledging like we all need to practice. Like this is not a one set and done deal. Like this is something that I want people to take away. And why we're creating these community calls as well is to recognize that we're all doing it in different things, in different ways. And that's why we need some group of people that can reflect it back to us in a very gentle, everyday kind of way, not to blame or shame us. Oh, see, again, you've done it again, right? Because this is the voice that we might hear in our heads when we once again didn't go on our walk or did the exercise that we should be doing or paying attention to our food. And one thing I really wanted to address when you were talking about this, not being aware of the foods that we eat, that I really talked about to some groups the other day, is how often in our days our focus is to justify and to satisfy the external needs. And once it comes to our internal needs, like as simple as going to the bathroom, I mean, how many of you, including myself, have had to go to the bathroom and said, no, let me finish this first? Yeah. Right? Or I'm not going to eat now because I'm really hungry right now, but I'm not going to stop right now because I need to finish this. And then it ends up to be an hour or something more and you haven't eaten yet, right? Our bodies are signaling that we need something. But we also forget, when I think about the eating part, it's like, yeah, but I don't want to just get over it. I want to actually be present with it. So what would you say to people that are challenged with wanting to satisfy external needs more than our internal needs?
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's a very good point. I think, especially when you talked about, there's no failure here. Everybody, I don't care if I've been meditating for a very long time. There's no such thing as perfection. Everybody's mind wanders. We all, believe me, I've done I've eaten breakfast in the car, on the train. I mean, it happens. I think it's just reminding yourself in those moments, like just to keep reminding yourself to bring yourself back, because really it's within us, right? To just whatever, however we do that, to like, even for certain things, when I first started meditating, like I wanted to do it a couple of times a day, I would set an alarm on my phone sometimes because I was at work and the day is nuts, and I still do it. I'll be like, oh, the alarm's going off, it's 2 o'clock, time to take 2 minutes. So I'm for whatever just gets you to be. But as a result of that, it flips a switch where it's like, okay, sometimes I'll eat lunch around that time. Okay, also that reminds me, you can have lunch now, to be a little bit more mindful. Stop looking at the computer, typing and doing all kinds of work, just have your lunch. So whatever it is that kind of kicks you into that moment, and you'd be surprised how it kind of, oh, sorry, my phone is ringing. It just kicks you into that moment of just taking a step back. Not beating yourself up over it. And you know what? If it doesn't work today in this moment, there's other moments.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're making an effort to do that, at some point, it will become like second nature. And you'll do it, and sometimes it'll be great, and sometimes it won't. But the fact is that you're doing it and you're trying it. So I think that's really, to me, that's a success.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. And I think one aspect I really want to say is like, we got some great discipline here, because a lot of us have these alarms that reminds them, hey, it's top of the hour, move around a little bit. They're like, snooze, next. So I commend you for that. I want to let you know, because I don't know how easy it is for many people to have that alarm, because I just had this conversation with someone where I was saying, like, my advice is to not go to bed at a reasonable time, at least in my books,
Yeah.
that I want to go. And someone told me, like, you just put an alarm to go, to go to bed. And I'm like, if I don't need an alarm to wake up, I'm not going to use an alarm to go to bed. And so what I'm realizing, it really ends up just being responsible and accountable of your own actions. I just have to tell myself, you go to bed now.
Right.
So at the end of the day, alarms, yes, can be a great help. And we don't need to fool ourselves if they go off. That, just be honest that you're ignoring it and you're not
Mm-hmm.
doing it, instead
Right.
of just, I didn't see it kind of thing. So
Right.
I think it comes to that, because then if we do this, we will do like what you said, that at some point we will take it on. We will do it. Maybe not now, but maybe in an hour from now. Because if we're holding ourselves accountable, if we're honest with ourselves, then it switches something. What do you say about the honesty, and like, because that's what the practice is in the end, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, I've heard many times, you've heard many times over and over again, that if you really want to do something, you'll do it. But even with that intention, sometimes you don't do it. But at the end of the day, you have to hold yourself accountable. Unless sometimes, like I'm also a health and wellness coach. In coaching, it's if you need an accountability partner, whatever you need to get yourself to that place. But in the final analysis, you're going to have to be the one that's going to have to go to bed on time, shut the TV, shut the lights. Again, sleep is so important. You have to hold yourself accountable, because it's just you. And if you, and I think, just sometimes it unfortunately takes either really being in a bad place, or, just being sick, not feeling good, whatever it is, to snap you into like, okay, this is bad enough where I've got to do something to change. So, and you don't want it to get to that place. You would hope that you'd start doing things before that. Again, like what we talked about initially, things building over time. And then you don't want it to build into something that's, is really big. You want to handle it when it's just at the beginning, and then, so you can manage it. So I think, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think we have to be honest with ourselves. And again, you know, when you talk about meditation or whatever it is, it doesn't have to be sitting on a mat. So be honest with yourself. You know what? I hate doing that. Okay, just find something else that's meditative. Because if you hate doing something, you're
Yeah.
not going to do it. It has to be
Yeah.
something that really resonates with you. You know, for me, if I'm out in the garden for an hour, like that's heaven. I love doing that. And it's just, I'm immersed. So yeah, but you're absolutely right. Your honesty and your own accountability is, in the end, that's what's going to drive it.
And bringing it all the way to the beginning, you know, how you mentioned like, oh, I do this practice every day, and it has shown, you know, some positive effects of it. And that, you know, the other side of it as well, when we look at it like I'm not doing it, there's also some impacts and effects of that, right? And so really seeing how these dots, how they are connected to each other. I was just thinking about me not going to bed at a certain time will make it much harder for me to wake up in the morning. I mean, luckily I wake up in the morning and still do what I said I'm going to do. So that's my part of the discipline. But it could easily turn into, if you don't have to wake up at a certain time, you're like, oh, I went to bed too late, so I'm going to go get up later. And then you get up later and then you, oh, you know, let me skip this one. And then all of a sudden, all these things turn into like, I'm not going to do this because of the beginning, right? Like coming back to the root of it and just seeing how each step that we're taking will lead us into a certain direction. So we want to be really like aware and present and just, you know, honest with what the steps can I do, like you said, right? Like do something that you actually enjoy doing, that tomorrow when you wake up or at the night before you go to bed, you will actually do, right? And so obviously there's many different things we could do to make that happen. As we're getting towards the end, are there any things that you want to give the listeners and viewers as a tool to begin? I mean, yes, you mentioned already some, like you put an alarm on, just have a certain practice, and like, how do I find what really I'm having fun? I mean, you said like, if I can do it for 2 hours, then that's that. And yet maybe there is something smaller that, like you said, like little things that, you know, couldn't make me want to do it, take that break or something. Yeah. Like, is there something that you know that why that would be helpful to do?
You know, I think like I'm just thinking about like a couple of things. You know, you have to also, because we were talking, get so distracted in life, you have to find things that bring you joy, whatever that is. It doesn't have to be anything monumental. It can be sitting and having a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. It's just taking those, making time for yourself, right? This is an act of self-love. To really make time for yourself, just take a moment and just, and, you know, think of things that you've always loved to do or things you loved to do as a kid that brought you joy. I think we just get so, we get so away from the whimsical, you know, over time. And it doesn't have to be some monumental thing and something that sets the world on fire, just something that makes you feel good. And maybe just take a few minutes out of your day just to think about that. And gratitude, right? We hear so much about gratitude practices, but they're important. And it's really, for me, I do it every morning and every night before I go to bed. Pick 3 things for the day that you're grateful for. And it really will change your mood. So I think gratitude is also very helpful. And again, these are things that just break that cycle of craziness during the day.
I was actually thinking about gratitude when I was thinking about going to bed. And I was like, oh, we'll see if it comes up. And one thing I can think of as I'm holding some ad here, my cup here is whatever drink you enjoy, be it a hot or a cold one, be present when you take a sip,
Yeah.
because that is just, you take in the smells, the taste, and you do this, especially the coffee lovers out there. You do this for a purpose, right? You do it because you want to wake up. How about you can even inhale the smell more?
Yeah.
You wake up even more. And so that's the one thing I want to add to this whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Think about what excites you. I'm like you. I usually at home I brew my own tea, but when we go out, sometimes my husband and I will go for coffee. I'm so excited to go and get a cup of coffee somewhere. Like, it's something that it really brings me joy. And you're right. And to just enjoy it and just be grateful for it.
That's awesome. Yeah, so we are having some of the community calls that people can join on Zoom. And so there's going to be a link that you can register for, so we know that you're coming, that you're interested in. We are going to meet anyways, and if it's just me by myself,
I'll be with you.
You'll be with me. All right, that's great. And so what we're really going to do there is to exchange with each other exactly what we did today, right? We're sharing what is going well for us, what's working, what are some things we want to get better at. And it doesn't mean that we have to give you tips or do it, because at the end of the day, we actually already have the answers. We already know what we're supposed to do and are not doing. We don't actually need someone to tell us what those are. We just need reminders. And be honest, maybe we want to do this, and when we're honest, we just realize we're never going to do it. Right. And that's okay. So find something else, and to really just have an environment where people are willing to share their opinions, share what they're struggling with, and even share what they're doing well at, and just having this space where we can support one another and just have this success in just very small things that we're doing. So it's not necessarily a huge thing that we want to accomplish. It's not like, oh, you're going to be the next bestseller or the next big thing of that. Like Maria said earlier, it's the small things that count, is to just become more present and aware in our everyday lives, because we all have them. We all have stressful moments. We all are overwhelmed at times, and there are a lot of joyful moments in there, and just to celebrate them a little bit more so that we see them happening and are not just brushing them past, so we can go on to the next thing that is going to be stressful and whatever not, right?
That's right.
Really be present. So yeah, any last thoughts that you want to share with us?
No, I just want to say, I just loved everything you just said. I think that's really, and the fact that, we're all in this together, and whatever your area of expertise is, it doesn't matter. Everybody is a work in progress. So there's no shame, there's no failure. But the support, I think, is a wonderful thing. Just like supporting each other through life, right? We're all getting through it together. And I think it's really important to have that community support.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is really that all the people that are part of this mentoring team, I call them, is here, that comes from a very heart-centered space. There's no goal-oriented or wanting to reach some perfection of something, but actually just becoming in tune with yourself, with your heart, with your life, and just embrace how life is blooming. I mean, right now we're in the fall, so also embracing that part of us where maybe some things are falling off and maybe aren't part of your life anymore, and just celebrate it as what it is, and not trying to make it something it isn't, or hoping for something that it won't, and just be in that mode of like expectations. And so really diving back to what we really have in this moment inside of us, and just want to flourish that part more. So yeah,
I love that.
I'm super excited.
I love it. It's great.
So yeah, if you're watching this and you are interested, feel free to message me, Maria, any one of the other gals that were here in conversation with me. And by the way, Maria is the only one out of the other four or whatever, the other four, that I actually met in person. So this is another great one that I'm just so excited about. So yeah, that's how we go. And thank you so much, everyone, for watching, for listening, for the beautiful messages, and have a wonderful day. And I speak to you soon. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Maria.
Have a great weekend.